Doubles and coffee. You know, jail and nice. Once police do their work, what is the system of governance in Trinidad and Tobago? What is cabinet? Cabinet consists of the Prime Minister and the Attorney General. Cabinet approval is needed for expenditure of taxpayers' dollars. This is sacrosanct. This is sacred to the accountability, transparency, and good governance of every and any democracy. Cabinet approval is needed because the Minister of Finance needs to know exactly through the budgetary process where money is being spent, how it is being spent, and how they're going to account for the people's money. Because taxpayers' money does not belong to the government elected to manage the affairs of a country. So cabinet approval is absolutely critical. No human being in any portfolio, in any state agency, has the authority to spend taxpayers' money without prime ministerial or cabinet approval. Only the Prime Minister can give cabinet approval or give approval for expenditure and then go back to cabinet for covering approval. Only the Prime Minister. So when you hear this nonsense that there was some error and some miscommunication and the PNM CEPEP board and the CEO approved on the eve of an election between the 23rd and 27th of April, when election is 28th of April in this country, and they write a letter saying, well, we thought we had cabinet approval, but according to cabinet, now they know that cabinet did not approve it, and they're saying, well, there was a miscommunication. Let me allay your fears. Cabinet is not a parlor. It are no he say and she say. It's a very systematic procedure with paperwork that dots your I's and crosses your T's. If there is a note that is saying, for whatever reason, the PNM government wants to extend contractors and commit the taxpayers, you the people, to $1.4 billion of your money, then the minister, the line minister of the agency, will have the permanent secretary and the planning department do a cabinet note with rational reasoning of why this solution or this need is thought to be the best position at this time, and will make recommendations to the cabinet through a cabinet note. The minister will sign the final cabinet note and say, PS approved. The permanent secretary will put it in a red file, take it to this cabinet secretariat. Then it will be put on the agenda for a cabinet meeting. The Prime Minister will chair that cabinet meeting. The Attorney General must be present. The cabinet will discuss the matter. If it's approved, then they will say approved. You can approve and confirm if it's absolutely urgent. But the normal procedure is that the next week's cabinet meeting, a little pink sheet will be created by the cabinet secretariat saying, in last week's cabinet meeting, this was approved by the cabinet, and we just want to make sure, we just confirming that you, the cabinet, agreed to expenditure, in this case, of $1.4 billion to extend contracts of CEPEP contractors who already had time, 18 months, 16 months, 12 months, to go on their contracts. And then cabinet, chaired by the Prime Minister of the country, will say, yes, this is confirmed. This pink sheet will then make its way to the line ministry and to the Ministry of Finance. The line ministry, the permanent secretary and her department will then take that confirmed minute and send it to the agency, in this case, the CEPEP board, and a board note will be made with the cabinet minute number stating that cabinet met on such and such a date and agreed to the extension of the contracts and so forth. And therefore, based on this information, the minute will be attached, stapled on to the board note, so that all board members will then be given a copy to know that the cabinet approved this expenditure that they were now going to move forward with. That is the process. Now that you know the process, let me read something for you from the PNM CEPEP company. Okay, dated, a note to the board. This is a board note. This is what we just spoke about, right? On the CEPEP letterhead. Subject, extension of contracts. Core contractors and key operational personnel and services. 23rd April 2025. 5 days before an election. They couldn't get CEPEP workers to go in meeting, but them going to have a meeting to spend $1.4 billion. Here it is. Matter for ratification, which meant that the cabinet decided on a decision. This is ratification. Extended duration of contracts. The matter for ratification of the board of directors of the CEPEP Company Limited is the extension of contracts to core contractors, key personnel, and operational services. Justification, you have to justify this taxpayers' money. In or around March 2025, the CEO and the chairman, and CEO and chairman only listen carefully, because jail ain't nice. Police only listen to. Engage in discussions which propose the extension of contracts with the intention to ensure business continuity across key operations within the company. Following these discussions, the chairman advised that the proposal was considered by cabinet. The chairman advised the CEO that the proposal was considered by cabinet and that cabinet had agreed to the proposed extension of contracts across the company. So the recommendation for the board members now, in light of cabinet's decision, now no cabinet minute attached, no cabinet number, no date, no meeting of cabinet, nothing. In light of cabinet's decision, the board is asked to ratify the implementation of extensions to CEPEP contracts, key personnel, and operational services for a maximum period of 3 years. Signed by Keith Eddy. Keith Eddy, you better get a good lawyer. And the chairman of CEPEP, whoever you were, the PNM chairman, you better get a great lawyer. Respectfully, Keith Eddy, Chief Executive Officer. Approved, date 24th April 2025 by Joel Edwards. Joel Edwards, are you the chairman? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if y'all don't understand the insanity that I just read there, no cabinet minute, no cabinet decision, no cabinet approval, a fraudulent letter misleading other board members. They said they did a wrong robin based on that, so they lied to other board members to expend or to commit the government of Trinidad and Tobago to expend $1.4 billion. That is akin to theft, to stealing. Without cabinet approval, there is no authority so to spend. There is no authority to commit. There is no authority to take taxpayers' money from any vote. The reason you have that process is the Minister of Finance must know what's going on. All over chairman and state boards cannot, there are 153 state boards. They cannot just spend money wild without cabinet approval. Think about that for a moment. That the Minister of Finance have no idea what people are spending. So WASA could spend 10 billion, CEPEP could spend 5 billion, HDC could spend 20 billion. And then the Minister of Finance say, hey, wait now, we have no money, we have to go and tax the people and take money out of the savings tax corporation. It doesn't work like that. It is illegal to spend without cabinet approval. The only person who could have given, if you all remember the Bridgman's fiasco when Rowley said it was crooked money when the Sea Bridge in Tobago collapsed and this company that they couldn't find an office for came, this Bridgman's, and Alison due diligence, a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, said that she did the due diligence on Bridgman's, and Bridgman's did not have any track record, no asset base, and in any tendering process would have never been approved to move forward. Remember, Rowley scoured that money, crooked money, and then he told the Tobagonians that it had gone through the normal cabinet process. Then he went to the Joint Select Committee of Parliament, and Stuart Smallpin-Young had to whisper in his ear, no, boss, you got the call on a Friday. We were in Tobago, remember, boss? And you gave covering approval over the phone for the Charter Party agreement. Now, Rowley, while that was irresponsible, wrong, and ridiculous to not read a document and just commit the government of Trinidad and Tobago and the taxpayers to millions of dollars annually to a questionable company, Rowley had the authority so to do that because he was Prime Minister. And a Prime Minister can give approval, then go back to Cabinet and say, hey, over the phone, I was in a rush, it was an emergency, but I need Cabinet approval to make sure that this money could be expended. Think back, when Patrick Manning was Prime Minister, I could never understand why Patrick Manning wanted to put himself as Minister of Finance all the time. And then when I got into Cabinet and saw Winston Dukaran as Minister of Finance and nothing would get done, nothing, no matter what cabinet note, what cabinet minute, the man used to move like molasses flowing out a Limacol bottle, slow and toss. He had 2 speed, slow and stop. Then I understood why Patrick Manning, who knew nothing about finance, he was a geologist, put himself as Minister of Finance. Because the Minister of Finance is the de facto Prime Minister, because Cabinet could approve whatever they want. But if the Minister of Finance does not take that pink sheet, go to the ministry officials and source funds either from borrowing, from consolidated fund, from PSIP, and put it in the vote for the ministries to spend, for the permanent secretaries to release, then the decision is just like one in the wind without any basis. But this is why Cabinet approval is so critical, and any expenditure or commitment to taxpayers' dollars for any process, procedure, or extension of contracts, expenditure, goods and service without Cabinet approval is illegal, is criminal. So this nonsense. And then the chairman saying, but somebody tell him, well, the only person who could have possibly told you that is Stuart Richard Young. So Stuart Richard Young, you need to speak up. You were Prime Minister at the time of this meeting. Did you tell the chairman of CEPEP, extend all these contracts? Stuart Richard Young, selected Prime Minister of the PNM, you need to answer. Did you tell the chairman and the CEO of CEPEP to approve that expenditure? But then you have a problem too, because if you did that, Stuart Richard Young, if you gave prime ministerial approval and then you weren't able, or you did not go back for covering approval, Stuart Richard Young, you better get a good lawyer too. You see, because a prime minister can give the approval, but they must go back to cabinet for covering approval, for the cabinet note, for the cabinet minute, for anything to be legally binding, legitimate expenditure. So we have to understand what is taking place. And then this Marvin Gonzalez dunce, and I go deal with he tomorrow, Bangladesh Marvin, he said, oh, no problem, cabinet approval was not needed. Let me read from a permanent secretary, Ministry of Finance. I wish to advise that cabinet approval would have been required for the CEPEP Company Limited to extend all existing contracts with contractors for a maximum period of 3 years, with effect from April 2025 to September 2029. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Finance, Mr. Chi. Cabinet approval was necessary. Any decision taken without cabinet approval is illegal. Police, Boy Blue. Bless.